So start here. This is information about the practice and it's guidelines that I have put together that are just going to make your experience of the practice more worthwhile. But I want the little subtitle to this video to be "Let's break all the rules." I'm not a biggie for rules. As you can probably tell if you've had anything to do with me here online or face-to-face in my sessions, then you know that if there is a restriction anywhere, if there are things in place to limit us or hold us back, I'm usually either wanting to know very much why or wanting to break those walls down. So I can promise you, if I'm giving you suggestions or guidelines or structure, it's only because it's necessary. Otherwise, I want this to be a really organic space where you get to engage with your intuition and practice using it in a way that supports you. But the following are some very helpful guidelines that I know that if you use it for the practice, and what I'm referring to there is more the channeled movement series that I offer called The Practice, where this whole online portal gets its name from. But these rules can also be applied to any meditations, any healing work, anything that you access here on this portal. They're pretty applicable. So let's go through them now. Number 1, never strain, always ease. What I mean by that is basically making sure that you're not pushing beyond your own level of mastery, that you're working within what is capable for you and remaining in a state of ease. These, particularly the physical exercises and the physiological channeled movement sessions we're doing, are purely designed to help you to spiritually tap into your higher awareness, to healing energies, to raise your vibration and to change your state. And so therefore, we really shouldn't be in pain. We shouldn't be moving beyond our limit. And we should be checking with ourselves any day that we're doing this and seeing where, I guess, our edge is. But always being in a state of ease. Ease is alignment with spirit. So keeping yourself in that awareness that even if I'm doing something, you can modify it, you can do something different to support yourself. Number 2, it's not about physical prowess or perfection. Just attempt as best you can your level of mastery. So many of the things that I'm doing here might be familiar from doing other forms of movement, Pilates, yoga, other breathwork techniques. But the major difference here is that this is purely channeled for your spiritual evolution, for your advancement as a human on a spiritual and emotional level. There are definitely physical benefits. You will see as you watch the journey of me filming this, the changes that it has physiologically and physically for me when I get back into doing the practice very often, and you'll experience them yourself. But this is not in any way about what you look like. It's not about what you do physically and whether you do it the most advanced version of what I'm offering. And it's not about getting it perfect. So for those of you that have backgrounds of perfectionism, I'm very much a recovered perfectionist. I'm very proud of that statement because I certainly used to struggle with it in the past. But, it will be the spiritual work, understanding that when you are going towards trying to make everything perfect and right, that is in fact not not the focus of what we're trying to achieve here. So really don't worry about what you look like. What you feel like and what your spiritual experience is way more important. And just everything that I'm offering you, find the setting, the level of mastery that works for you on that day, and you'll have achieved what you're meant to achieve out of the practice. Number 3, you do not have to complete the practice. Once you get peaceful, abort mission. So what does that mean? Well, that's really about the fact that this practice is designed to elevate your spiritual connection. And there might be points in it where you might be 5 or 10 minutes in and you hit a sweet spot. Perhaps you start to connect with your guides. Perhaps you start to connect with your spiritual essence, and you really don't feel a need to continue. You've got what you've wanted out of the practice. Then you can stop. The same goes for when we use it from an emotional perspective. You might be in a funk or have had, say, an altercation with a friend or at work, or some stress that goes down in your life, and you might be using that particular practice to reset your energetic well-being and your emotional well-being. And you might get 5 or 10 minutes in and feel that happening and feel complete in your practice. Listen to that. You don't need to keep going. If you're wanting to tune in and connect, or you're wanting to quickly change your state, that's what this is here for. Nothing bad would happen if you weren't to complete it. All I would encourage you to do before you move on is just lie on your back in Shavasana and reset pose, and simply allow your body to rest for 10 breaths or a couple of minutes. 10 slow breaths, and then be on with your day. I will be rapt if you're telling me that, 5-10 minutes in you got where you needed to be and you switched it off and you did whatever it is that you plan to do. This is a launch pad for spiritual practice, your spiritual mission, and your emotional maturing and evolution. So, engage with whatever you need to engage with around this. If you're a healer and it's going into your healing work, absolutely do that. If you're a parent and it's going back to be with your kids or to go back to be with your partner, absolutely do that. Number 4, any modification that brings you into ease is perfect, is fine. I will suggest lots of different options for you as they come up. Any modification that feels right for you is always recommended. You'll know what your body needs. You've been driving around in your little soul vehicle for well longer than I have. I can't see you through the internet. So unless it's obviously your live stream practice, but ultimately you can do whatever you need to do, even if that is just lying on your back and breathing in the reset position. Jump into it, because you know your body better than I. And as we said, the ultimate goal is about propelling us vibrationally, spiritually, to raise our vibration. Number 5, pushing is always ego. So when we're pushing in the practice, we've stopped listening to our intuition. We've stopped engaging with our body in a respectful manner. Always listen to your body and your intuition, and if it feels wrong, stop. Where I learned a lot of my physical mastery from was from a particular guru that I learnt off, and he actually never gave modifications. He was a bit of a badass like that. He never actually suggested any alternatives. He would correct minimally. He knew that he could trust people in knowing what they needed for themselves. And so he demonstrated, he gave minimal instructions, and he let people experience the magic that was tuning into their body and themselves. And I love that way of doing things. Number 6, you are responsible for your practice. Like I was mentioning before, because I can't see you, I have no way of knowing what you're doing. And this is a system of movement and spiritual exercises that is about taking responsibility. And when you take responsibility for yourself on all levels, you will never injure yourself, you'll never hurt yourself. It is about being in tune with the equilibrium your body needs. It's about understanding that you have been driving this soul vehicle around, for your whole life, and therefore you know it better than anyone. And you need to modify and take alternatives and back off where it is appropriate. I will give lots of recommendations for ways you can adjust things to make it safe. And I'll step into different practices, particularly the more challenging breathing practices, but you need to exercise your own precautions. At the beginning of every practice, there is a series of disclaimers that I encourage you to read. And there is a disclaimer on my website, and in joining the practice, you agreed to terms and conditions that mean that I'm not responsible for what you do. Now, it sounds like a cop-out, but it's necessary in this time. For me to teach these very advanced spiritual practices, I need you to know that you're the person responsible for your health and safety. And that is a really high spiritual regard when we are not in a state of blaming anybody else or being in victimhood. We are able to move through our experience with such strength. So this is a very important part of the practice, is taking responsibility for your emotional, spiritual, mental health and listening in. And if the only thing that you got from doing the practice regularly was really attending to your intuition and learning how to keep close check on all the shifts and changes and state changes in your body and in your physical being and your emotional being, then you have by far exceeded what many people are trying to do in their spiritual practice already. And the final guideline of the practice is about the reset position, as my guides call it, Shavasana, or corpse pose as known in yoga. It is always a good option. In fact, it's always the best option. And so if I'm giving things and they just don't feel right for you, if it feels too much, if for whatever reason on that day you are exhausted or you need to reset and you know that's what you need, lie on your back, let your mind tune out and let go. This is a very healthy position for us to take. And the purpose of the practice is very much to encourage what we'd call the balancing of the nervous systems. There is a lot of information about nervous systems out there right now, and I've spent the last 12 years becoming an expert in understanding how to heal and reprogram and reset and revitalize the nervous system, particularly when it comes to trauma. And what I'm noticing is that people are describing the nervous systems often from a very binary place, and that is that the parasympathetic nervous system is often described as the better nervous system than the sympathetic nervous system, which is hilarious because it's kind of like saying your brakes are better than your accelerator in your car. But if that were true, you'd never go anywhere. It is about this beautiful balance. And most people that come to me are coming to me to work with me, or are coming to the practice because there is something that they intuitively know is out of balance in their life and they want to heal it for themselves. And the practice is simply a way of doing that. It's the spiritual power and awareness that allows you to heal yourself, to self-heal. And one huge part of that is allowing the instrument, which is our body, and the thermostat, which is our nervous system, and the computer, which is our brain, to come together in such an aligned and beautiful way that it's working in harmony, that it's actualized, it's at its highest vibrating setting. And that is understanding that there is no better nervous system, but that if you spend a lot of time, or have spent a lot of time, in a cortisol wired space because you've experienced childhood trauma, or you felt vulnerable to the energies of the world, or you're hyper empathic and you have a tendency to wear more than your fair share of burdens, then the time that we spend in the practice will be putting the brake ons at times, or allowing us to idle, allowing our motors to idle. And so the reset position, the Shavasana position, is so beautiful. And you'll also notice that throughout the meditations that I offer here, the pre-recorded stuff, it's all about recalibrating yourself, charging your batteries again, and reconnecting. Because when we're in a very high vibrating place, you know, we're floating. We're in this place of floating in spiritual energy. It's really beautiful. It's in this real slipstream of perfect alignment. And that comes from allowing yourself to fall asleep at times in Shavasana, or allowing yourself to fall asleep in meditation. There's nothing wrong with that. We are in a world that fears rest, that fears truly tapping into our spiritual power, and sometimes that comes from a place of resetting and silencing and getting quiet. Doesn't look particularly sexy on Instagram, doesn't seem like we're getting much done, but if we give ourselves the time to go into the reset position throughout the practice, we get so much spiritual charge, and we get to discharge all the stress and tension that we've acquired. So I hope these 7 principles, these 7 guidelines, help you to really get the most out of the practice. I'm just so excited to share it with you. I know that it's going to change the world, the way it's changed mine. I know it's probably going to change the world if we can get enough people doing it. I encourage you to reach out to me, no matter how you know me, whether you know me online or whether you know me from face-to-face work, whether you've known me for a long time or you've known me for very little. If you want me to suggest ways to engage with this program to get the most out of it for you, I'm here.